Hi, I'm Dr. Leif Smith, and today I want to talk about why it's so important and so crucial that you are very intentional and very careful and very specific with how you go about doing things in your life. The moment you set an important goal for yourself in your life, resistance appears. This is always how it's been, and it always shall be. I call it Newtonian mental physics, right? Remember in physics class, we learned that every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction? Same thing applies mentally. When you set a big goal for yourself to change your behavior, to make more money, to get a better job, to improve your relationship status, resistance is going to pop up. Now, you may not even be aware of it, but it will pop up and it will start getting in the way of you going towards that goal. So it's very important that you're careful about how you set up going about your goal setting. You want to make sure that you are very aware as you set the goal. You want to make sure that you are aware of the unconscious process that's going on underneath the surface here. What happens when you set a big goal is immediately your negative self-talk becomes louder. You know what that is. That's the little voice in your head that says you can't do it. The little voice that says you're not good enough. The little voice that tells you all the things that are wrong with your plan. That little voice in your head becomes a loud voice in your head. It becomes the voice in your head immediately upon setting a goal that's worth anything in your life. You need to be aware of that. It's a very important process that occurs every time you set that big goal. You also need to be aware that your bad habits now come into play. The bad habits of avoiding coping with problems. So you run to video games instead of doing research or instead of reading and doing things that are good for you. You run to drugs, such as alcohol, pot, those sorts of things, instead of going towards exercise, which is much more healthier and which is better for you in the long run. We run back to our bad nutrition habits. We go back and eat things that make us feel good for 10, 15 minutes instead of things that are good for us over a lifetime. We date based on attraction, based on short-term chemistry instead of long-term value commitment, long-term values that merge with the values that we have. So our bad habits get in the way of us doing what we want to do as soon as we set that big goal. Again, this is why clarity is important. You need to be careful about how you say things, how you do things. To manage that negative voice in your head, you need to be very clear about hearing what it is trying to say. You need to ignore it. There's no sense in arguing with a heckler, is what I always tell my clients. There's no need to argue with it, but you don't need to give it power. And you need to be very careful about the message you are crafting in the other direction. How you talk to yourself matters. We also need to understand that we build ourselves and we build our lives one habit at a time. Meaning, every little habit we get into, good or bad, it has a cumulative effect on our life. So if we're going to get where we need to go, we need to accumulate better habits. I talked about some of the bad habits that get in our way just a second ago. So it's very important. You don't want to practice what you don't want to become. Or practice intentionally and carefully becoming the person you want to become. This all comes about the moment you set a goal in your life that is important for you. So I'm Dr. Leif Smith. Today, the takeaway for you is to be very careful. Think and think clearly about what you want in your life, because once you set that goal, resistance will pop up. You need to anticipate that, and you need to have a plan to work around it. Thank you for being a member of my community, and if you're not, please hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in my next video.